Based on the success of my top 100 Yo Mama jokes, I've had many fans in the comment section request that I do a top 100 Chuck Norris video. Let's begin. Chuck Norris was born in the log cabin he built. Chuck Norris doesn't run out of time, he runs after it. There once used to be a street called Chuck Norris, but it was changed because nobody crosses Chuck Norris and lives. Chuck Norris has already been to Mars, hence that is why there is no signs of life. Chuck Norris once ordered a Big Mac at Burger King and got one. Fear of spiders is arachnophobia. Fear of closed spaces is claustrophobia. Fear of Chuck Norris is logic. Chuck Norris and Superman fought each other on a bet. The loser had to start wearing his underwear outside of his pants. Chuck Norris once strangled a man with a cordless phone. Magicians can walk on water. Chuck Norris can swim through land. Chuck Norris once counted to infinity. Twice! Chuck Norris is the reason Waldo is hiding. Chuck Norris can cut a hot knife with butter. Chuck Norris can slam a revolving door. Chuck Norris doesn't flush the toilet, he scares the shit out of it. Chuck Norris will never have a heart attack. His heart isn't that foolish to attack him. Chuck Norris once won a game of Connect 4 in 3 moves. There is no theory of evolution. There is only a list of animals Chuck Norris has allowed to live. When Chuck Norris does push-ups, he doesn't lift himself up, he pushes the earth down. Chuck Norris doesn't wear a watch, he decides what time it is. Chuck Norris plays Russian roulette with a fully loaded pistol and wins every time. Chuck Norris can light a fire by rubbing 2 ice cubes together. Chuck Norris doesn't read books, he stares at them until he gets the information he needs. Some people wear Superman pajamas. Superman wears Chuck Norris pajamas. Chuck Norris once ran a marathon backwards just to see what second place looks like. Handicap parking is reserved for Chuck Norris. The picture shows what will happen if you take his spot. Chuck Norris once had a staring contest with his reflection. After 4 days, he won. If you spell Chuck Norris in Scrabble, you win forever. Chuck Norris once created his own brand of toilet paper. Unfortunately, it didn't take shit from anybody. Chuck Norris can put out a house fire with gasoline. It takes Chuck Norris 20 minutes to watch 60 minutes. Chuck Norris starred in all of the Star Wars films as the Force. Chuck Norris' hand is the only hand that can beat a royal flush. Chuck Norris can set ants on fire with a magnifying glass at night. Chuck Norris destroyed the periodic table because Chuck Norris only recognizes the element of surprise. Chuck Norris is so fast, he leaves for work at 2 p.m. and comes home at 8 a.m. on the same day. When the boogeyman goes to sleep every night, he checks under his bed for Chuck Norris. Contrary to popular belief, America's not a democracy. It is a dictatorship. Guantanamo Bay, Cuba is the military code for Chuck Norris's basement. He who lives by the sword dies by the sword. He who lives with Chuck Norris dies by a roundhouse kick. They say the quickest way to a man's heart is with Chuck Norris's fist. Those that work in the office with Chuck Norris know not to ask for his 3-hole punch. There are 2 types of people in the world, those that suck and Chuck Norris. President Roosevelt once said, "We have nothing to fear but fear itself," and then he whispered to himself, "and Chuck Norris." Google searching Chuck Norris gets his ass kicked generates 0 results. It just doesn't happen. For some, the left testicle is larger than the right. For Chuck Norris, each testicle is larger than the other one. When Bruce Banner gets mad, he turns into the Hulk. When the Hulk gets mad, he turns into Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris does, in fact, have a keyboard with the any key. Chuck Norris doesn't use a computer because a computer does everything slower than Chuck Norris. When Chuck Norris plays Monopoly, it actually affects the world economy. When Chuck Norris wants an egg, he cracks open a chicken. The chemical formula for the cyanide ion is CN. There are also Chuck Norris's initials. This is not a coincidence. We live in an expanding universe. All of it is trying to get away from Chuck Norris. Want to know the last thing you hear before Chuck Norris gives you a roundhouse kick? No one knows, because dead men tell no tales. Chuck Norris is the only man to ever defeat a brick wall in a game of tennis. Chuck Norris wears a rattlesnake as a condom. Wilt Chamberlain claims to have slept with more than 20,000 women. Chuck Norris calls this a slow Tuesday. According to the first law of thermodynamics, energy can neither be created or destroyed unless it meets Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris lost his virginity before his dad did. By some strange paradox, Chuck Norris could fight himself, he'd win. Period. Chuck Norris can divide by zero. Chuck Norris once kicked a horse in the chin. Its descendants are known today as giraffes. There is no such thing as a lesbian, only women who have not met Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris' keyboard doesn't have the control key because nothing controls Chuck Norris. Police label anyone attacking Chuck Norris as a Code 13 in progress, a suicide attempt. When Chuck Norris donates blood, he declines the syringe and instead requests a bucket and a handgun. Chuck Norris can taste lies. Love doesn't hurt, Chuck Norris does. Chuck Norris can do a wheelie on a unicycle. Not everyone Chuck Norris is mad at gets killed. Some get away. They're called astronauts. Chuck Norris once roundhouse kicked a telemarketer over the phone. Superman once watched an episode of Walker, Texas Ranger. He then proceeded to cry himself to sleep. How many Chuck Norris does it take to screw in a light bulb? None. Chuck Norris prefers to kill in the dark. Saying that no one is perfect is a personal insult to Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris doesn't own a stove, an oven, or a microwave because revenge is a dish best served cold. Google won't search for Chuck Norris because it knows that you do not find Chuck Norris, he finds you. Chuck Norris recently had an idea to sell his urine as a canned beverage. We know that beverage as Red Bull. Chuck Norris can, in fact, speak Braille. It is believed that the dinosaurs are extinct due to a giant meteor. This is true if you want to call Chuck Norris a giant meteor. Industrial logging is not the cause of deforestation. Chuck Norris just needs toothpicks. The phrase balls to the wall was initially used to describe Chuck Norris entering any building smaller than an aircraft hangar. Chuck Norris invented black. In fact, he invented the entire spectrum of invisible light. Expect pink. Tom Cruise invented pink. Chuck Norris got his driver's license at age 16 seconds. When Chuck Norris was born, he had sex with the first nurse he saw. He was her first. She was his third that afternoon. Chuck Norris doesn't bowl strikes. He just knocks down one pin and the other 9 faint. Chuck Norris' internet connection is faster upstream than downstream because even data has more incentive to run from him than to him. Chuck Norris grinds his coffee with his teeth and boils water with his own rage. Think of a really hot girl. Chuck Norris did her. Jean-Claude Van Damme once kicked Chuck Norris' ass. He was then awakened from his dream by a roundhouse kick to the face. When Arnold Schwarzenegger says, "I'll be back" in Terminator, it is implied that he is going to ask Chuck Norris for help. In the X-Men movies, none of the X-Men superpowers are done with special effects. Chuck Norris is a stuntman for every character. The Great Wall of China was originally created to keep Chuck Norris out. It failed miserably. Count from 1 to 10. That is exactly how much time Chuck Norris needs to kill you. 48 times. Contrary to popular belief, Chuck Norris can indeed delete the recycling bin. Paper beats rock, rock beats scissors, scissors beats paper, but Chuck Norris beats all three at the same time. In an average living room, there are 1,248 objects Chuck Norris could kill you with, including the room itself. Some people ask for a tissue when they sneeze. Chuck Norris asks for a body bag. Hellen Keller's favorite color is Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris sleeps with a pillow under his gun. Chuck Norris once threw a grenade and killed 50 people. The grenade then exploded. Chuck Norris can indeed kill your imaginary friends.